Right now, as you are reading this, missiles are flying over Tel Aviv. Sirens are going off in Jerusalem. Hezbollah rockets are hitting northern Israel. Iranian drones struck a train station in central Israel just this morning, March 17th. And somewhere in Washington, Donald Trump is telling reporters that Iran is a paper tiger, that its military is basically finished, that a deal is right around the corner. Meanwhile, the people of Tel Aviv are running to bomb shelters for the 245th time since this war began on February 28th. 245 confirmed attack waves in less than 3 weeks. Let that number sit with you for a second, because here is what I want you to understand before anything else. There is a massive, undeniable, documented gap between what is being said from podiums in Washington and what is actually happening on the ground. And that gap is not just a political story. It is a story that is already affecting your gas bill, your grocery prices, and the economic future of every country on this planet, including the United States. That is what we are covering today. And I promise you, by the end of this, you will see this war in a way that no single headline has given you. Welcome to Unlocked History Hub. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now and tap the like button below this video. We cover stories like this one, the real picture behind the breaking news, the connections that mainstream coverage skips over. You need to be subscribed because this situation is moving fast, and we are going to keep covering it as it develops. Now let us get into it, because there is a lot to unpack. Let us start at the beginning because context is everything here. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a joint surprise attack on Iran. The stated goals were to eliminate Iran's nuclear capability, remove the Iranian regime, and restore security in the region. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed on day one. Multiple IRGC generals, nuclear scientists, and senior officials followed in the days after. Trump went on television and told America that, quote, just about everything has been knocked out, that Iran had no navy, no air force, no radar, no detection capability left. He said Iran was finished. He said it was over. That was day 3 of the war. Today is day 17. And Iran has now fired over 500 ballistic and naval missiles and nearly 2,000 drones at Israel and American targets across the region. 245 confirmed attack waves against Israel alone. So I want to ask a simple, honest question. Does that sound like a paper tiger to you? Here is what makes this situation so difficult to understand from the outside, and why I think it deserves a careful, honest breakdown. When Trump says Iran's military has been destroyed, he is not making that up entirely. The data on U.S. and Israeli strikes is genuinely staggering. Over 7,600 targets have been hit inside Iran since February 28th. The IDF says more than 70% of Iran's missile launchers have been neutralized. Over 85% of Iran's air defense radars have reportedly been destroyed. Hundreds of command and control targets have been struck. IRGC headquarters in multiple cities have been leveled. By any historical standard, the physical destruction being delivered to Iran is enormous. And yet, Iran is still firing, still launching, still hitting targets. This morning, Iranian missiles struck a train station in central Israel. Last night, Iranian drones attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Hezbollah has launched 34 attack waves against northern Israel in a single day. The question that nobody in Washington wants to answer clearly is this: how can you destroy 70% of an enemy's launchers and still face 245 attack waves? The answer lies in a concept that military historians call dispersal and redundancy. Iran spent years, not months, but years, pre-positioning mobile missile launchers, preloaded solid fuel weapons, in scattered locations across the country specifically to survive exactly the kind of campaign being run against them right now. You cannot bomb what you cannot find. And the Sajal ballistic missile, which made its combat debut just 2 days ago on March 15th, runs on solid fuel, launches from a truck, and requires no fixed infrastructure whatsoever. Iran did not need a single one of the 7,600 destroyed targets to fire that missile. Now let me walk you through what is happening on the ground right now, because the scale of this conflict is genuinely unlike anything we have seen in decades. On March 15th alone, 10 separate Iranian attack waves were directed at Israel. 5 of them targeted the Tel Aviv metropolitan area. 5 targeted southern Israel. The Beit Shemesh neighborhood was struck earlier in the war in a single ballistic missile hit that killed 9 people and injured more than 20. A residential building used by the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem was struck by missile debris. Just yesterday, March 16th, missile fragments landed near the Knesset, near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and struck a home in Rishon LeZion. Israel launched a ground invasion of southern Lebanon today, March 17th, with Defense Minister Katz saying it could resemble the Gaza operation and that Israeli forces could occupy Lebanese territory indefinitely. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom issued a joint statement today saying this ground offensive must be avoided and warning of devastating humanitarian consequences. 5 of America's closest allies in a single joint statement telling Washington and Tel Aviv to stop. That is not a small diplomatic signal. That is a flashing red warning light from the entire Western alliance. But here is the part of this story that I think matters most for every American watching this. The war is not staying in the Middle East. It is already in your daily life, and most people have not fully connected those dots yet. Let me do that for you right now. Before this war began on February 28th, a barrel of oil was trading at around $70. Within days of the war starting, it jumped over 10%. When Iran moved to functionally close the Strait of Hormuz, the price surged past $100 a barrel. It briefly touched nearly $120 a barrel before settling around where it is now, above $100, and still climbing. The Strait of Hormuz is a 21-mile wide waterway between Iran and Oman. It is the most important energy corridor on the planet. Roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes through it. 1/5 of all global liquefied natural gas trade moves through it. And right now, it is functionally closed. Hundreds of tankers are sitting idle on both sides of the strait, unable to move. This is the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Not one of the largest, the largest. What does that mean for you specifically, sitting in the United States right now? Gasoline prices at the national average are now at $3.72 a gallon, according to the latest 8AA data. That is nearly 80 cents higher than just 1 month ago. Diesel is approaching $5 a gallon, $1.34 higher than last month. And diesel is not just about trucks on the highway. It powers farm equipment, construction machinery, and the supply chains that move every single product you buy. When diesel goes up, everything goes up. Food prices, construction costs, manufacturing costs, retail prices. California is already above $5 a gallon at the pump. The IEA tried to respond by releasing 400 million barrels from global emergency reserves, including 172 million barrels from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It did not work. Because 400 million barrels at current global consumption rates covers less than 4 days of supply. You cannot emergency reserve your way out of a closed waterway. Now here is where the global picture gets even more serious, and why I believe this is not just a Middle East problem. It is a worldwide economic crisis that is only in its early stages. The Dow Jones fell over 400 points on March 2nd. LNG prices in Asia more than doubled in a single week, reaching 3-year highs. Qatar Energy suspended its LNG production after an Iranian drone attack on its Ras Laffan facility, the world's largest liquefaction plant responsible for 20% of global LNG supply. Saudi Aramco and the UAE's ADNOC reduced refinery operations. Iraq and Kuwait have been forced to cut oil production because storage tanks are filling up with crude that has nowhere to go since tankers are not moving through the strait. The World Economic Forum described what is happening as a structural shock to the global economy, delivered at a moment of geoeconomic fragility. Bloomberg Economics warned that for Europe, sustained higher energy prices could push the continent to the brink of recession. For the United States, the Federal Reserve now faces an impossible situation, caught between war-driven inflation pushing prices higher and a president publicly demanding that interest rates come down. The countries that are absorbing the most pain from this war are not even the ones fighting it. Japan has approximately 60 days of strategic petroleum reserves left. South Korea, which produces the semiconductors that go into your phone and your car, has around 55 days. Vietnam has less than 20 days. Pakistan and Indonesia are at 20 days. India, Thailand, and the Philippines are scrambling. Around 80% of Asia's oil imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz. When those countries start cutting industrial production to manage energy costs, the effects do not stay in Asia. They show up as supply shortages and higher prices in American stores 60 to 90 days later. This is the direct economic chain connecting a waterway in the Persian Gulf to the shelf price of your next electronics purchase. The Asian Development Bank warned that smaller energy-importing economies, including the Philippines, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, are facing especially severe macroeconomic stress, with oil prices transmitting rapidly into inflation and currency pressure. Djibouti's finance minister called the situation a threat of severe economic consequences for developing countries. Egypt's president said his country is in a state of near emergency due to growing inflation. The economists at Capital Economics projected that if this conflict extends to 3 months, Brent crude could average $150 per barrel over that period. $150. For context, the 2008 financial crisis, which wiped out trillions in global wealth, occurred when oil was around $140 a barrel. We are approaching that territory right now. And then there is the human cost, which deserves to be stated plainly. According to Al Jazeera's tracking, at least 1,444 people have been killed inside Iran so far, including over 480 civilians. The World Health Organization confirmed that at least 18 hospitals and health facilities have been struck inside Iran. The deadliest single incident of this entire war was a strike on an elementary girls' school in the city of Manab in southeastern Iran, which killed more than 170 people, most of them schoolgirls. In Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes and a new ground offensive have killed hundreds and displaced over 1 million people. 29 people have been killed in Iraq. 2 people were killed in the UAE. 13 American service members have died. The human cost of this war is real, and it is growing every single day. Now here is where I want to share my honest perspective on where all of this is heading, because I think it matters. The core theory behind this military campaign was that overwhelming, rapid destruction of Iran's military and political leadership would cause the regime to collapse or capitulate, and that this would happen fast enough that the global economic disruption would be short-lived. 17 days in, that theory is being stress-tested by reality. The regime has not collapsed. A new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, was elected on March 8th. He has made no public appearances, which itself reflects how dangerous the situation is inside Iran right now. But the missiles keep flying, which means the operational command structure, however dispersed and damaged, is still functioning. The economic pressure on the entire world is not short-lived. It is compounding, and the geopolitical isolation of Washington is deepening, not narrowing. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the UK issued that joint statement today. Turkey said it will never be involved in this war. France denied sending warships. No coalition of any meaningful size has materialized to support the U.S. position. What I think we are watching is a war that was designed for a quick, decisive outcome, but has entered a phase of sustained attrition that neither side can quickly exit. Iran is rationing its remaining missile stockpile for a longer fight. The Sajil missile's combat debut on day 15, after being withheld through 53 previous attack waves, tells you something important about Iranian strategic patience. Israel is facing a documented interceptor shortage and approved $826 million in emergency defense spending on the same night. Its military publicly said there was no shortage. Those two facts sitting next to each other tell you everything you need to know about the internal pressure building on the Israeli side. The longer this continues, the more the global economic damage locks in. Supply chains that reroute around the Strait of Hormuz do not automatically snap back when the shooting stops. Trade relationships that shift to bypass American-controlled corridors tend to stay shifted. The World Economic Forum put it simply, what begins as a battlefield shock hardens into a geoeconomic one. The decisions made in the next 2 to 3 weeks will determine whether there is a diplomatic off-ramp that allows the strait to reopen and prices to stabilize, or whether this becomes a prolonged attrition conflict with economic consequences that ripple through the global system for years. Neither side is showing signs of moving toward that off-ramp right now. Both are projecting total resolve. Both cannot be correct simultaneously. And the world, including you and me, is paying the price while that question remains unanswered. That is where things stand today, March 17, 2026. This is not a distant war. It is already at your gas pump. It is already in your grocery store. It is already reshaping the world your children are going to inherit. I am going to keep covering this as it develops, because the connections between what happens in this conflict and what happens in your everyday life are real, and they matter, and they deserve honest analysis. If this video gave you a clearer picture than what you were getting from the headlines, please share it right now with someone who needs to understand what is actually happening. Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely want to hear from you. Do you think there is a diplomatic path out of this? Or has this war already gone too far to stop at a negotiating table? What do you think the end of this conflict actually looks like? Tell me below. I read every single comment. This is Unlocked History Hub. Stay with us because this story is far from over.